hear us fine, I assume?
Pretty good, yeah.
Good.
Here we go, Kev. You're on now.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's episode of Paranormal Encyclopedia. I know last week we said we were going to talk about deals with the devil, but we have a guest tonight instead.
We're still writing up the contracts.
Yeah,
Our
lawyers are doing the double check on those contracts.
Yeah.
But I want to just do, of course, our introductions. I'm, of course, your host, Kevin Mears, demonologist, Paranormal Encyclopedia.
I'm author Brian McKinley, godfather of paranormal thrillers.
And joining us tonight is fellow YouTuber and international fugitive, Virgo Triad.
Yes.
Wow, what an introduction.
So many people you get to call an international fugitive.
And, of course, Virgo, you're calling from an undisclosed location, I believe also known as your house.
Of course. Safe house number 69.
Warehouse,
Of course, 69.
Warehouse 13, yeah.
So, Virgo, I could introduce you, but I think I always think guests can introduce themselves better. Why don't you let everybody know what you do?
Okay, well, the Virgo Triad channel is a channel that exposes primarily scams. We expose things like redemption theory scams so that people don't end up getting themselves in trouble. We also expose things like, hazardous health scams. For example, the Jilly Juice scam was something that we covered. And we do a lot of assisting with other channels that also are getting into exposing more of the social media scams that have been going on over the last few years, and there's very little watchdog community in order to do that. So we are trying to actually establish a small watchdog community to kind of help with the YouTube scams and con artists and the Facebook scams and con artists. So that's primarily what our channel does.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's what originally caught my attention is seeing. I watch a lot of like Van Balen and Scam Stingers.
Yeah.
They reference you, and of course, when I have them on my search lists, your name turned up, and it's like, okay, let's watch this.
Yeah, actually, Van is one of the people that are involved in the watchdog community pretty heavily. Also, Talisman World is involved, and then of course, Scam Stingers is an archive of pretty much everybody's. You'll see everybody's on that channel, because although I'm an admin on that channel, everyone that is in the community is involved in it.
That's awesome.
Great. Yeah, we did a whole episode one time on like homeo.
On a lot of the we talk a lot about like the medical scams, homeopathic remedies. Vitamin B17, which is one that really pisses me off a lot lately.
Yes, let's not go there.
Well,
let's not go there.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Doctor? Or he calls himself. He's not really Dr. Ken Hovind. It's like he hits the wall. B17. He's a young Earth creationist, and he's a sovereign citizen.
The trifecta.
My goodness, he certainly is. He's the triple threat, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he was caught for income tax evasion, it's like, nope, I am a sovereign under God. The U.S. government has no authority over me. It's like, really, dude?
Yes, that definitely sounds like you're dealing with a sovereign citizen for sure.
I don't know. So where's this been all my life? I want all my tax money back.
Good luck with that.
You mean I didn't have to pay all these years?
That's what they say, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I remember the argument.
They've got some kooky. They've got some real kooky, skewed laws that they believe in. Those are a lot of the things that I debunk on the Virgo Triad channel, because people tend to fall into particular traps because they so badly want to believe these things, and they don't do complete research.
And especially you get somebody, I mean, I've watched, Harvey Dent, and I've a little bit of April to June, and I've watched, I don't know how many of the various videos, compilations of these people. And some of it is so tempting. It's like this idea that you could just get out of debt. You could just not pay your income tax anymore.
Oh, yeah. Like that guy, I don't even remember his name, but he used to run those commercials like at 3 a.m, and he's running around in like a suit with dollar bills all over it. He looked like some kind of
Oh,
second-tier
yes,
Batman
I know
villain.
exactly who you're talking
Yeah,
about. The federal grant guy.
Yeah, and he was all about how you can get all this money for no reason. And people were, you know how you make a ton of money? You sell people a book that tells them how to make all of this money.
In fairness to that guy, doing a little bit of research back in the day, it's like, no, he was actually talking about legitimate grants.
Oh,
the odds of you getting them were really low.
No, he misrepresented a lot of the stuff, though, and how easy it was to get on there.
But at least, that's the thing is, that guy was talking about real
illegal.
grants. These people are just making shit up.
Yeah, that was always I just liked his look.
So
like I said, I always thought he was a Batman villain.
I wish I could.
He did kind of look like a Batman villain.
He did. He was like the Riddler's, like
a '60s era Batman villain, especially.
Yeah, he's like the Riddler's half-assed second cousin or something.
The hillbilly Riddler.
Yeah,
there you go.
Kind of the he's not as crooked, really. He's Batman just kind of slaps him around. It's like, stop being a dick.
Gives him a stern talking to.
Yeah, exactly. He can't really get him on anything, but
So since it's the thing, well, I guess before I ask talk about the more obvious thing of why you're now currently an international fugitive, which is kind of what brought you on the show. Do you want to define for folks real quick who are kind of confused what a sovereign citizen is?
Well, a sovereign citizen or the sovereign movement, let's call it that, okay? Because they're not. I think that big umbrella term tends to confuse people a bit. There are a lot of people that are in different types of movements that would qualify under the same ideology.
This is true.
Let's just say the sovereign movement, and that kind of encompasses everybody. And this ideology being one that's very anti-government, very, very, they believe that the government has no control over them. They believe that the government has largely defrauded in areas of banking, the Federal Reserve. They believe that they have the right to travel without a license, registration, and insurance. They believe that these are constitutional rights. They believe that the police department is of every city, of every state, should be null and void and is a corporate fraud entity, that only the sheriff and the sheriff's department has any real law based on constitutional rights. It's endless in terms of the ideology kind of being anti-government and all of the things that they consider to be fraud and anti-constitutional. But one of the things that they do heavily or push heavily is the redemption theory. And that redemption theory is where you guys will see things like the TDA scam that was going around here about a year ago, started with Harvey Dent's video, and moved all over the place to, April or June, and all these other guys that are the Moorish people. They have, let's see, Tazadak, Shea Bay is one. There's the Texas paralegal guy. I mean, there's all of these, just hundreds of them.
Oh, yeah.
And they picked up on this redemption theory, which of course says, the birth certificate is monetized at birth and continues to grow in value, supposedly, and that, it's worth money, and they've lied to you, and they've stolen your identity, and you all have money either in the Treasury, in Treasury Direct, or in the Federal Reserve. Nobody can quite figure that one out. And the bottom line is to all these, secured party creditor stuff and, file a UCC and it'll get you on the right side of, public versus private. And the bottom line is the majority of it is just complete hogwash. It really is. They've skewed laws to appear to be something that they're not. They've mixed in, state and federal laws with UCC, which is not technically laws. Those actually belong to each individual state, but they're kind of all mixed in there together to make it look like to make it look positive for the agenda they're pushing.
Yeah,
it is. It's amazing. What I find really interesting, at least personally, is when you look at a lot of, traditional anti-government movements are usually anarchists, which are traditionally left-wing. But from what I've seen,
libertarians.
well, that's just it. From what I've seen, the sovereign movement is actually predominantly more on the right.
Yes, right extremists. I would say, we're jumping on the bandwagon of potentially looking almost communist from that angle. As you said, the anarchists are predominantly extreme left, and neither one are good. Bottom line.
Yeah. The further you go in either direction, the crazier you get.
Yeah.
Stalinist communism isn't better than Nazi fascism.
Exactly. I mean, there's not, I'm a person that's fairly right down the middle, and I right is right, wrong is wrong, and quite honestly, that neither side holds up factually. So
I agree 100%. And also really importantly here, and this is why I think your pet channel is so important, and listeners, seriously, go look at Virgo on YouTube. She does some really good stuff. Is this stuff, you can get is dangerous. People wind up going, people take this stuff seriously. They try it in court, they try it with police officers, and they go to prison.
Yeah.
It's extremely dangerous, extremely dangerous. I mean, there are people that are serving 20 and 30 years over trying stuff just from last year, just from seeing the original Harvey Dent video. It's no joke. People do not realize how much damage it can do to their personal life by just them attempting something that they do not see as, as what it is, which is fraud.
Yeah. And I really like
extremely
to see
scary.
Is these gurus, I want to, especially just because Harvey Dent, I mean, the man's Two-Face already. It's the name of the Batman villain, for heaven's sakes. We need to put...
It all comes back to Batman.
As much of a fan of free speech as I am, these people are causing people to commit crimes. They're outright lying to people. I'm of the opinion legal action should be taken against these gurus, because I think most of them, and tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I think a lot of the people pushing this agenda know that it's bullshit.
I would agree that the majority of them know that it is complete and total bullshit. I would agree with that 100%.
Well,
however, getting them to admit that is something totally different. And in terms of law enforcement, they look at numbers. They look at amounts of dollar amounts. They look at amounts of victims that are actually turning in information on the people that, for example, one of the reasons why I believe that Harvey Dent has not actually gotten in any trouble up to this point anyway, has been that he simply is not selling packages. He's not really pushing that. He pushes for donations. He pushes for T-shirts and this sort of thing, but he doesn't actually push anything that it would be considered conspiracy.
He goes right up to that line, and he doesn't. He knows he's smart enough to know where the line is and not to cross it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that to some extent, although there have been some times that he definitely crossed that line. Like, I don't know if you saw recently, he did a video on donations and how you can use your Federal Reserve account to make donations and they won't be reversed. And that absolutely was conspiracy to commit fraud.
Yeah.
Charities got involved, got very angry, and ended up turning it over to law enforcement. So, but how much of that moves to him, I can't tell you, because of course it's an open investigation. So,
but at the very least, it's incitement.
Yeah, it's incitement to commit fraud. There's got to be legal something the law can do.
Oh, there definitely is. It's just whether or not, and this is the hard part and why Watchdog is so important in terms of, groups of individuals that watch out for these things and warn people. That's because of the fact that law enforcement simply does not have the manpower to go after every single solitary con artist. Yeah. If, they're looking for big numbers, big dollar amounts, large amounts of victims before they start putting together task forces.
And this is why I wanted to have you on the show. It's not a paranormal topic, but people need to be informed.
Yeah,
right, exactly. And, I think we could actually, this is more on the humorous side, but maybe not. There is actually a hate map out there. Now, don't quote me in terms of the party that puts this map out. Southern Poverty Law Center, I think, is a bit to the left more than I care to see. I don't think they're fairly balanced in every avenue that they take. But they do have what's called a hate map, and it largely encompasses groups that promote certain types of hate. And what I found to be interesting after looking at it before the show was that there are certain areas, primarily to the east of our country, that seem to have just this large abundance of these groups. And perhaps that's something you might want to look at from a paranormal standpoint.
That slime from Ghostbusters 2 is doing its thing.
It's the mood slime in New York.
A return.
I mean, seriously, it is interesting that you find this massive amount of these massive amounts of groups, largely in New York and New Hampshire and these other areas that are far to the east. You should take a look at it. You might be able to actually put it together.
Yeah, and that is we're here in New Jersey. This is our area.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think Brian's right. I think there's definitely a cultural element. I mean, New Hampshire's state motto, live free or die.
Yeah, there's a strong sort of Yankee sentiment that still exists in the rural areas of those.
Not to mention, let's talk about the New Jersey Devil,
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, the Jersey Devil. Luckily, as far as I know, though, he takes no proceeds from the sale of his merchandise, so I'll give him that.
But there is a gateway to hell under Elizabeth, New Jersey. The musician Voltaire wrote a book about it.
Some would argue that Elizabeth, New Jersey is a gateway to hell. I mean, that's hell's doorstep right there.
But yeah, there's a book called The Call of the Jersey Devil by Aurelia Voltaire, in which, one, there's a gateway to hell in New Jersey. Two, basically hell's directly under Elizabeth, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
You ever been there? I wouldn't dispute it. It's that or Camden.
Why not both?
Camden could be like the Hellmouth right out of Buffy. I mean,
wow.
So I think this is a good segue into. So why don't we talk about this international arrest warrants?
Oh, yeah,
okay.
This is the fun part.
Oh yeah, this is the comedy gold of the whole situation, in my opinion.
Okay, all right. So I'll let you guys just go ahead and ask questions or whatever. Now I only know just so much about it because I'm only the accused.
This is true.
They don't tell me a lot.
So as I understand it, you're accused of attempted murder for calling someone a sovereign citizen, right?
Well, in actuality, I didn't actually call them a sovereign citizen. What happened was, I was reading an article from, or a paragraph of an article from the Southern Poverty Law Center, because it had to do with Anna Von Reitz. And Anna Von Reitz is one of the people that I have debunked her title. She calls herself a judge, in which she has that does not exist. Only in her fantasy world does that exist, okay? A lot of people had questions about it, wanted me to look at it, and I did, and it turns out that she's claimed to be about 9 different types of judges, and none of them have panned out for her. So she has no legal authority. And I found this article, which was someone who put an arrest warrant up for her. And I read a portion of that actual article, and in the article, the Southern Poverty Law Center called them sovereign citizens because it's part of the Sovereign Citizen Hate Watch.
Mm-hmm.
And that's apparently how I got accused.
Oh, nice.
Because apparently just reading an article that calls somebody a sovereign citizen is the same as attempted murder.
Well, there should be a lot more warrants going out, because I remember seeing this, like an episode of Law and Order, where they more or less dealt with the whole sovereign movement, and it was Sam Waterston going up against these yokels that like killed a postman or something, and were declaring themselves to be like beyond the laws of the United States and all of that. And
well, it's also like Virgo alluded to earlier. There's so many nicknames for this movement. Free man on the land. There's the subsect of the Moorish Americans that get
right.
into it. And that's another thing, because I've done research in the past on the Moorish. There's what's called the Moorish Science Temple, which is I don't want to call it a cult, but it's a fringe religious movement in the United States. Now,
right, it's a separate ideology, but it definitely meshes.
Well, that's just it. The mainstream temple does not condone the sovereign aspects that some of the followers. So they're a bit unusual. They have some really odd ideas about genealogy and who the original settlers of the United States were. But to their credit, they do the mainstream temple says no, you operate within the law. There's this fringe element that's like, oh no, because I'm actually a Moroccan, your laws don't apply to me.
Right. Well, and here's the thing: the whole stigma of the sovereign citizen movement, and the whole sovereigns calling them sovereign citizens and putting them under that umbrella, it really, really gets under their skin. It really gets under their skin because sovereign citizens have been, called out by our government as being domestic terrorists. So their reasoning behind my supposed attempted murder charge is that I purposely put a target on this gentleman's back by saying sovereign citizen within the reading of that, which gives, according to their article, gives the government license to shoot without question.
Not just the government, but the paid assassins, which is out because I took the time to read the warrant. They call police like paid assassins in it. It's like
if so,
right.
the police really need to renegotiate because I'm sorry, murder is worth a lot more than what they get paid.
Yeah, it's like wait, they're paid assassins on a civil servant's salary.
Yeah,
really?
They are the worst paid assassins ever.
Well, you guys will be happy to know. Actually, apparently, from last I heard, my arrest warrant has been lifted. I am now in the human rights violation tribunal, and it's being overviewed. That was the last thing that I heard. But to be perfectly it's so the whole thing is so silly that I just I kind of stopped there because I get really some serious death threats through emails, through comments. It's really ugly. Right. And I think the bottom line here was just that the specific people that I was talking about did not like that I was talking about it, and decided to call up a few of their buddies and attempt to try to do basically a character assassination. It didn't work out too well. And, anything to get Virgo to shut up because they don't like that I'm exposing, they don't like that I'm debunking things that they believe in.
Right, and clearly they sort of miscalculated the effect because this has only made you more interesting to talk about. And so, kind of missed.
Yeah, it seems that they might have
guys
made a mistake there.
Yeah.
Well, let's face it, they're not
target.
Even the smarter ones. I mean, the way I see it, I think there's three types of sovereign. You have the true believers who actually think it works, or I like to think of them as the sheep. You have the con artists who know it doesn't work and are just fleecing the sheep for as much money as they can get. Which are the one I'm not going to necessarily name names, slander and all that, but the ones that are selling packages and things of that nature. Yeah. And then you have the really deep down crazy ones, which are the ones who know it doesn't work, but I think if enough people try, they can change the law.
Yeah, I mean, from my view, it's an attempt to kind of start a revolution that it appears to other people that may not know the background of this, or may not know the background of what a revolution is. I don't think they quite connect the word revolution with literal war. Yeah. And that's what a revolution is. It's a war.
Well, and that's the part of this
and I think they don't recognize just how dangerous some of these people actually are at different levels. Yes, we have the scam artist level. We have the level of just delusional. We have the followers that think that it's just a better way, that it's a way to get free of debt, a way to get out from underneath traffic tickets or what have you. And then we have the real serious militia type guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's the dangerous ones. And the
Yeah.
scary thing, like I said, what scares me about them is it's like the other ones, the anarchists and the guys that are up in the hills, with their armed camps and whatnot. And it's like, okay, so the idea here is if you you're basically creating the purge. I mean, that's pretty much what America turns into if they win. It's the purge all the time, every day.
There's the old story about
ridiculous
overthrow of a government, of a tyrannical government, and it's like they overthrow the government. They take over. They move into the offices, and they find a letter like, read this when you win, and it explains pretty much everything that's happened, everything that they think is going to happen, and then another letter that says read this in 6 months, and it's 6 months they've turned into the exact thing they've tried to overthrow, because the reality of it is we need laws to function as a society. Anarchy doesn't work.
Yeah, humans just don't tend to want to exist in anarchy. We're naturally social creatures, and we tend to create constructs.
As long as you have two people living together, even if you have two people living together in an apartment, within 24 to 48 hours, they're going to start figuring out basic, that's your side of the fridge. I don't touch your food without permission. You don't touch my food. You come up with a basic set of rules, which is really all that law is.
Yeah.
Right. That's right. Yeah, and I mean, to give you guys an example of what kind of world we would be looking at by going to these so-called common law courts and common law judges that have, no interest whatsoever in upholding actual statute law that we are governed by today, but their own laws. For example, Cindy K. Courier has the law of the land handbook, okay? Their own currency, all of this stuff. Well, just to give you an example of what that looks like, take a look at the arrest warrant, and you will see that, there are Merb, for example, on his channel, who is an attorney, took a look at it and says, basically what this says is that, they'll give you due process before you're hanging.
Yeah.
And isn't that reassuring? They're going to hang you, but you're going to get a fair trial before they hang you.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was the best. That was the best line in Silverado. Brian Dennehy. He basically said exactly that. He said you're going to get a first class. He said you're going to get a fair trial followed by a first class hanging.
There you go. That's exactly what it reads like. And it's crazy anyway. We're talking about no freedom of speech. None of that applies.
No, it's Wild West law.
Well, that's the worst of it, because freedom of speech certainly applies, but as long as it's their speech that's protected.
Yeah.
Because if you try to shut them up, they'll be screaming free speech to the high heavens.
Yeah, as long as you agree, it's always fine, but it's when you disagree, that's when the claws come out.
Welcome to why I'm losing faith in
also,
our
God forbid if you read an article and you happen to say certain words within that article.
Oh, yeah. Shouldn't they be going after the person that wrote the article, maybe, rather than you?
They're shooting the messenger. They're trying to hang the messenger.
Yeah.
Well, and that's and within that, within their common law court, that's legal. See, I think what they figure is we're talking about a group of lawyers within the Southern Poverty Law Group. Now, do they really want to deal with that?
No.
No, it's much easier to try to deal with Virgo and claim she's, everything under the sun, and it's craziness. But then again, when we talk about looking at their ideology and you really start breaking it down factually, what isn't craziness about it?
That's all of these fringe groups kind of scare me a little bit with some of the stuff, the young Earth creationists, the anarchists, the really hardcore libertarians, all of that stuff.
The more I study this stuff, there's like just like in everything else in life, there's a pecking order to conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
The young Earth creationists exist so everyone else has somebody to laugh at. The flat earthers exist so the young Earth creationists have somebody to laugh at. The sovereigns exist so that the flat earthers have somebody to laugh at. And the germ theory deniers are the ones that everybody laughs at.
Exactly. It does feel that way, you know, and I mean, I guess that's kind of what makes the world go around in terms of different people's ideologies and stuff. But some of these get so really, I mean, they really get dangerous. They get to the point of, you know, really damaging people, such as the redemption theory stuff. You know, people go into prison behind just not doing some simple research and listening to a few YouTube videos. It's really terrifying. But these people also become extremely, you know, they really want to push this agenda. So they'll do things like, you know, they'll hire hackers. I mean, I've had people email me and say, oh my gosh, you know, somehow my computer was hacked because I chose not to be in this group anymore, and they claim they're watching me all over the place. And, you know, it's really upsetting how cult-like it's run.
Which makes me realize, and this will actually be a good segue, we'll do the advertisements for our sponsors at the end of the show, because this is a good segue for at the end for when you get into NordVPN's internet security.
Oh, God, yeah.
But the reality of the situation is we were having a lot of fun. I mean,
and Audible, so you can look up books that tell you how all
on
this
actual
stuff
law
goes on. Yeah.
But we're having a lot of fun with the fact that you have an international arrest warrant, which, by the way, isn't a thing. The United States has no government. The actual U.S. government, because it's a made-up one that issued the warrant, doesn't have any authority to issue a warrant in any country other than the United States. So the idea on its face is ridiculous. But there's a lot of silliness here. But the reality is, you know, these people have shot cops. Terry Nichols, one of the conspirators behind the Oklahoma City bombings, was an outspoken member of the sovereign citizen movement.
Absolutely.
Jared Fogle, the subway guy who was caught being a child molester, a pedophile, tried to use sovereign citizen arguments to get himself out of prison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
These people deserve to be mocked.
It really does get serious. I've had threats that have been extremely, extremely scary, which is one of the reasons why, I mean, you know, you hear these people constantly, well, why won't Virgo do this? Why won't Virgo say what her name is? Blah, 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 blah. Well, why would you?
Yeah,
my goodness, they threatened to cut my dog's head off. You know, I mean, these people have absolutely no moral compass whatsoever when it comes to protecting what they deem as their ideology that needs to remain, you know, being pushed forward for as many people as they can gather up in whatever way they have to do it. It is really becoming a serious thing.
And when you look at a lot of your bigger targets, I mean, less so with that because he's doing the donate to me over the selling packages. But a lot of the people you talk about do sell packages, and they sell product. And you're threatening their business. You know, they're already engaged in criminal enterprise, and you're threatening their business. It's not a shock that these people might turn violent to me.
And exactly. Yeah, when you're affecting their bottom line, and you have to figure that no matter what, these people all have a tie together, whether they're actually physically working together or not. They all have this ideology as a tie together, and they definitely pull together when they need to.
I will say, just for the sake of the fun, I've actually had a direct encounter with sovereign citizens before.
Like in person?
Yes, face to face.
Okay,
I didn't know that
let's
was
hear
what
it.
It was at the time, but I realized later. So some years back, I'm working in this hotel. And I have these two people come in and they ask for a room. Like, okay, so here's the price. It's like, well, can you do any better than that? It's like, well, let me see. Okay, I can do this. But, you know, obviously because it's a hotel plus tax. Like, well, no, we don't pay taxes. Like, you have some sort of tax exemption thing, you know, okay, do you have the paperwork with you? Oh, no, we don't have to pay taxes. Like, yeah, unless you've got paperwork proving you're tax exempt. Yes, you do. It's like, no, taxes are illegal. They're a form of theft. The 14th Amendment. And looking at them, and it's like, did I just grow another head? What's going on here?
Oh, I had another one. I had an encounter with a guy.
It keeps going because eventually I'm like, look, I cannot legally not charge you taxes. You have to pay taxes. Take it or leave it. Finally, they agreed to take it. They go off to their room. Their credit card gets declined, at which point I have to throw them out. And I'm like, look, you need to come down and give me valid payment, or I'm calling the authorities. And then the guy's there at the desk and just looking at me, going, "You're a slave. You're a slave." I'm like,
Well, let me tell you what, you're very lucky that he didn't claim.
Saying this to me, a very white guy.
You're very lucky he didn't claim squatters' rights.
Yeah, I was going to say
he was in the room for about 15 minutes. Like that wouldn't have worked real well.
I can imagine him doing it though.
Because it would have been. They were there 15 minutes. I would have called the cops and had them hauled out.
And haven't you heard slavery is an equal opportunity criminal enterprise now? I mean, come on.
I know, but paying taxes.
Old-fashioned thinking. Man.
So you were saying you had an experience.
I had another one with a guy that was trying to tell me and a friend about this amazing loophole that he had heard about in the criminal justice system and whatnot, where the fact that all of our laws were in fact based on what he said was admiralty law.
Yes,
which had
that's a sovereign argument.
Yeah, had something to do with the Navy. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, first of all, you've lost me there, because it makes no sense how all of our laws are based on a Navy that we didn't have at the time of the writing of the Constitution. But go on. Continue explaining this to me. Maybe you can make it make sense.
Or at least you get a good chuckle out of it.
I was having fun with it, but I'm like, all right, no, well, let's hear this argument out. And he's talking about how, if your name is written in all capital letters, that means that you're a corporate entity, identified by that name, and that's not, your name is an actual person. So therefore, when you're arraigned, you have to stand up and say that, I don't acknowledge the existence of this, corporate entity here or elsewhere. And he's got this whole speech, and I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you know what? You did it, pal. Hundreds of years of legal maneuvering and stuff. And all you had to do was find this one little trick. It's like finding the cheat code in the video game, and suddenly it all works. And like, know about it, and like a couple of other people on YouTube know about it. Uncle Sam is blissfully unaware of this horrible, this loophole in their entire legal system, and every judge is just going to go, "Oh, you got us." He said,
"Yeah, well, that's the whole salesmanship of it. See, it's a secret. It's all a secret."
Yeah. But I just made him laugh. I said, I laughed at him. I said, "Dude," I said, even if there was some kind of factual basis to this, do you think that the people that write the laws could not have sewn up this loophole by now? That they would not have, or that any judge in their right mind is going to say, "You know what? You're right. You're free to go, dismissed. Pal. Case dismissed."
Oh, see, they'll dismiss their own case, though.
Yeah. Oh,
wait, I got one for you guys. For you guys.
No sense.
Go ahead, Virgo.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
I got one for you. Okay. What about the do not detain list?
Oh, you just did a video on this one, too.
Yeah, not too long ago. The do not detain list. The one that says that unless you cause property damage or bodily harm, that you can't be detained?
Oh. It's like the
apparently.
It's like the do not call list, except it works.
Except it doesn't. Well, yes, there's the whole corpus delicti thing, which supposedly means there actually has to be an injured party for there to be a crime.
Oh, yeah. But no, I like
the do not detain list. But wait, okay, Money Boy Films went as far as to file their paperwork to be on the do not detain list with guess who? Okay, wait for it. The Federal Trade Commission.
Ooh. Because we all know that's who's really running the show.
Yeah, they control the law enforcement. The FTC right there.
Well, we all know about this. The World Bank, the Illuminati, the Bilderberg Group.
Everyone knows the true people that control the Illuminati are McDonald's.
No,
so you have to you have to file paperwork.
Ronald, I thought I saw Ronald McDonald was the new CEO.
He's in charge of the Bilderberg Group.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the Bilderberger Group.
Yes. Bilderberger Group now, yeah.
Or there's the Bohemian Grove. Don't forget them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm joking about all this because I know for a fact that vampires actually run everything behind the scenes. I've written several books
that's Brian's whole book shtick is vampires rule the world.
Yeah. They're
Well,
the
you know
Illuminati.
that when all this is
So I'm
over
putting
and
my
done
life
with,
on
if
the
you
line
ever
here.
see the Virgo Triad channel go down, it's because Lestat got me.
Awesome.
Yep, that'll
Yeah.
be it.
Well, and if I ever
That's it.
disappear, this is why I'm saying it now on camera, because I want the truth to be out there. I'm putting my life on the line here by identifying the vampire
See, I
conspiracy.
personally blame the space lizards.
Well, no. See, the space lizards are, they work for the vampires. They're the grunt troops. They're the ground forces. The
Wait,
lizard.
you're
the
gonna
lizard
get
men.
you're gonna end up getting an arrest warrant from the reptilians
I
now.
know.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Well, he'll get one from the vampires, and I'll get one from the
they don't
lizards, and we
arrest-
can, switch them.
They arrest you, then they just eat you. In their world, corpus delecti means the corpse is delicious.
Yeah, delectable corpse.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
That works.
It's like, they're like the visitors from the 80s.
And
they
it's
just
the
eat you.
thing. There's a serious element to this, and I'm very, when I heard about the Warren, as much as I laughed, I'm like, I was glad to hear that you had the sense to take it seriously enough to contact the FBI.
Oh yeah, I absolutely have to. I mean, anytime that I get any kind of a threat whatsoever that is, above just normal ranting,
Oh, yeah.
because someone has an opinion. If there's any sign of it being a bodily threat of some sort, or threatening part of my family, or something of that sort,
That isn't
I
fine.
have no choice.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's
have
what you
to.
should have. Yeah,
You have to establish a paper trail, because if this person ever later goes further and
God forbid.
attacks someone, then they've got to know
Right.
that this is
There-
serious.
I have to give you full credit as well. If the reality is, they're trying to intimidate. They're obviously trying to intimidate you, and God bless you, it's not working. You're still doing the videos.
Yeah, well, I might be a little bit crazy in that way. I don't get intimidated very easily. As a matter of fact, the more someone tries to intimidate me, the more I seem to, get louder.
Yeah.
I'm
for
wondering,
you.
maybe that might be a mental issue with me. I don't know.
It's the anti-authoritarian streak. I know, I'm the same way.
It's also the reality of, like we've said, people take this stuff seriously, and people go to prison for 20 to 30 years.
Yeah.
And the old saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing.
Yeah.
People have to do somebody has to say something, or the nut jobs and the crazy people are the only source. And let's face it, we're in the instant gratification age of when people find one video on YouTube that tells them this shit works. That's enough.
Right.
And hopefully maybe somebody who has seen one of these things, maybe one of these videos, yours or ours, will pop up, and they will watch that, and maybe they'll think twice about it. Which is,
And of
what we
course,
can
there
do.
will be a link to Virgo's channel in the description.
Sure.
And I'll probably add some of the others, because there's a lot of very good ones, and I definitely recommend people check it out. If nothing else, folks, I think I have faith that most of my listeners are intelligent enough to know better than this. But there may be somebody in your family who doesn't. And two, if nothing else, it's good for a chuckle. The things these people say and the things they try to get away with are great for a chuckle.
Yeah, it's 4th of July. It's 4th of July coming up, so it's a perfect topic, actually.
Yeah, it really is.
Kind of fits in without us really planning it. So
Yeah, I've actually
Right.
cool.
I have to give credit. I've actually met one other sovereign-esque person, but he was actually really cool. Because I was working in Staples a long, long time ago, and I had this guy who'd come in, and I was trying to write at the time. He was a writer. He'd give me advice, and he was talking about how he had figured out how to get out of ever having to pay income tax again. But he wasn't like real hyper about it. It was real laid back. He was trying to self-publish a book on it.
yeah. Well, and like I said, there are the problem with all of these ideas is not that they're all crazy. They all start out at a fairly reasonable place, and it's that there are certain elements of the government that may be unfair. There may be certain elements of our taxation
Oh,
system
God, yes.
that are not entirely fair and are not what
Yeah, I
the
don't think
founding
anybody
fathers would have
disputes
wanted.
that.
I don't. Yeah, there's not. I know you've said it in videos. I watch Merb. He says it more than once.
So it taps into
Nobody's
legitimate
saying that
thoughts.
we support everything the government does, especially. I mean, certainly, I would not say support everything the government does right now.
Oh God, no.
Right.
But even at
Right.
even at its best, there are elements of the government system and the American system that could be revised, that could be fixed.
And here's the kicker: we're not the only country that has these crazy people.
Yeah, no, I'm sure every country.
Seen
has
videos from
laws.
England. Flat earthers you find all over the world. Young earthers are mostly an American thing, but sovereigns are global. I've seen a lot of videos out of England. I've seen videos out of Australia and New Zealand. I think the craziest of all is
you guys got to check out Van Balen's channel.
I
My
love his
goodness!
channel.
Yes, they are all over the place.
How about the guy at the border with Israel trying to pull this stunt? That was the one that's like,
oh my God,
you're gonna try to pull that with Israel of all countries?
Wrong place, man. The Israelites do not. They give.
But
zero.
you have to give credit, and it's here's another reason, folks, to watch these videos. If you ever want to watch cops at their absolute best, a lot of these sovereign videos, and the videos are usually aren't uploaded by cops, or uploaded by sovereigns trying to show what victims they are. That's the crazy part. And then people like Van, share them and compile them. But the cops are. There's the one video of the two people that they got what they called an illegal traffic ticket. So they walked into a police station wearing ski masks with a rifle strapped across their shoulder and a sidearm. And you have the cops yelling at them to put the guns down. And after about 10 minutes, the guys actually get on the ground. And despite the fact they walked into a police station in ski masks heavily armed, they don't get shot.
Which is remarkable restraint.
Yeah. And you watch, there's the one with the TSA agent where the guy's like, I won't, the scanner causes cancer because it's occasionally ionizing radiation, which is, it's like, okay, so you just failed science.
Yeah.
And the pat down is sexual molestation.
Yeah.
He wants to go through a metal detector. And the TSA agent, and I don't like the TSA, they do some really horrible stuff, but as the nicest, calmest, most reasonable TSA agent in the history of the TSA, he's like, look, I understand that's what you believe. That's not how I interpret the wording. I can't change that wording. Here, I'll tell you what. I'll walk with you back to the ticket counter, and I'll talk to them and put in a good word for you and try to get you your money back. It's like...
That is actually a really good one. And that came off, I believe, of Talisman World's channel.
He's another great one. I love Talisman World. I think that's where I started, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some amazing older ones, and that's one of them that's really good.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. I'm sure you know Ernie as well, which is another favorite of mine. The Mountain Man.
Are you talking about the Montana Mountain Man?
Yeah.
Yes.
Although I have to say, as funny as I find him, I mean, has anyone checked the man for senility? I mean, he talks about like, oh, I don't plead, animals plead, ba ba, oink oink, and I'm here by special appearance only visit, by special visitation only spirits can appear. It's like,
have you seen the one where he's standing in the courtroom with the flag draped over him, standing on?
Or standing just outside the court with one foot on a copy of the Bible and another foot on a copy of the U.S. Constitution.
Yes. It's complete insanity.
And he's unkempt, and he's got a huge bushy beard, and his hair's all over the place. I'm not joking. I'm not making fun of the man in this. In general, I make lots of fun of the man, but I'm not making fun of the man in this case. I seriously wonder if it's not dementia or senility. The guy's mind does not seem to be all there.
He may be.
No, I mean, I agree with you. And if you watch, there's an episode of Ernie on Vice. I believe it's on Vice, the Vice channel, maybe. Mm-hmm. But I'll send you the link later so that you can add it to the description if you want to, because he is actually in an episode on that channel where they do a whole half an hour show on Ernie.
I can believe it.
Well, he's entertaining enough.
It's just fascinating. I mean, the part of me that was once a psych major is just fascinated by the mindset of these people. I know. I have to look at because they'll go, I am here as an agent or representative of that. I am not the legal entity. And it's like, if I was the judge, you know what I'd do? It's like, okay, very well. I sentence you to identity theft, go to prison until we can find the real person. You said you're not him, so you must be committing identity theft.
Yeah.
You know, they're getting a lot better at being able to deal with these arguments than they were, say, 5 or 10 years ago, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Because in the beginning, it kind of just hit out of nowhere. It's, the police officers didn't know how to deal with it. The judges didn't know how to deal with it in a way that was, they just basically were having them checked to make sure that they were sane enough to stand trial.
Yeah, and which is legitimate. That would be a more legitimate tactic, is trying to use this stuff to establish that you're not
Well,
mentally
here's the
equipped.
kicker to me whenever I look at this, and Merb's channel is really good because as you said, he's an attorney. If there was any legitimacy to these arguments, I would expect defense attorneys, and I'm not talking about public defenders, but like the high-priced defense attorneys who are given large gobs of money to
They'd
get
be getting people off
their
left and right.
clients out of murder. You'd expect them to use the argument once.
Yeah.
But you never see
Right,
a defense
exactly.
attorney
There's
use
really
this
no
argument.
record of there ever being any of these arguments that have actually worked. Now, you'll hear the opposite, and they'll cite very, very specific cases. And what you're going to find in those cases is, for example, one of them that gets cited on a regular basis is on this right to travel thing, and the Dozick channel just did a debunking on that. The case law was, or the actual case was done before the Model T automobile was even made.
Well, that's one of their other problems. They have this cutoff point, and they don't accept any law after it. The big example I've seen, and I've argued with them before, because when I'm weird, when I get bored at home, I'll sometimes go on to YouTube channel comments and pick fights with stupid people.
Oh my goodness! Okay, we didn't hear that.
Oh no, I freely admit this, and I do it under Paranormal Encyclopedia. You can find me all over the internet doing this to people, and it's like,
well, Virgo's channel is pretty.
Yeah, I think I picked a fight with a couple of your, not with you, but with a few of your crazier commenters. Usually, I look for the crazy commenters. The people that are saying all this nonsense works.
Nice.
And
right. No, I know what you mean.
They'll tell me that that's statutes and codes. It's like, well, Black's Law Dictionary, which is the holy Bible of the sovereign citizen movement, says that a statute is simply a written law.
Which is most definitely.
Yeah. And I'll directly quote where it says this. And they're like, no, it's a statute. Statutes are not laws. But your own book says it is.
That it's law, right? Exactly. and notice that it's version 5 that they absolutely at the 5th edition that they have to go with too, because of all the information that's in there that supports them. They think.
Yeah. It's like you realize, you're on the 5th edition. The rest of the country is on the 10th.
Exactly. Well, and here's the thing. They don't realize that Black's Law Dictionary is a dictionary. Yes. It's not a law book. It's a dictionary.
Yeah.
It's a very useful resource because it legal definitions of things, and it cites case law.
Sure.
But one, you have to use the most up-to-date version, and two, you have to recognize it's a dictionary, not law.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the problem. That's what I'm saying. Exactly the same thing. They go back to laws that, have been superseded by these other laws because, well, we've kind of moved forward from there.
And at the time, the laws that they cite don't say what they... I've looked up some of the cases law that they cite. It's like the actual ruling is the exact opposite of what you said it is.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and the other bad thing is, that we've found that some people who are selling packages are actually removing large portions of case law and replacing it with what they think it should say in order to further their agenda.
Bingo.
So, there's a lot of pretty nefarious stuff that's going on to try to get people to act out these things.
Yeah, and that's where it's actual fraud.
And that's why we're here, is because people need, like I said, I've said several times, people need to be aware of this because, maybe our listeners are smart enough to go, I'm not going to fall for that. But, we all know somebody who falls for this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I mean, to be perfectly honest, I met some very, very intelligent people who have fallen for it because there's a reason why they call them con men. You know,
This
they're
is true.
very convincing, and they're very confident in what they're saying and doing. And if you really just go by the laws that they tell you to look up, and then look up here in the dictionary and look up over here in the UCC code, and you know, if you follow what they're telling you to a T, you're going to end up with a skewed way of viewing that law.
And Virgo, you're 100% right there. I mean, aside from chasing demons, one of my other hobbies is stage magic. And the psychology of deception, people tend to think the smarter you are, the harder you are to fool. And actually, it's the other way around. Because here's the thing. If I'm running a con or I'm doing a magic trick, if you're an idiot, I'm going to have a very hard time fooling you. If you're smart, especially if you think you're smarter than you actually are, but you are actually very smart. You know, I'll give you a perfect example. When I'm doing a magic trick, I can get you, if I'm going to levitate something on a piece of string, well, I can talk about magnetism and about the gravitational pull of this and that. And if you're just smart and if you're pretty smart and educated, you'll have an idea of what I'm talking about, and it's much easier to sell you the trick or to sell you the con. If you have an elementary school education, you're gonna get bored and get lost with me talking about magnets and all that. Successful con men prey upon your intelligence.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, for example, people have heard of the UCC1. People have heard of secured party creditors. This is the reason why they don't really question it when it's brought up in these redemption theory schemes, because they've heard of it before. They just really don't have a very knowledgeable way, you know, a working knowledge of how it functions. Right. And but they know that it's there. They know that it exists, so therefore they don't question it quite as much.
All absolutely true. So we're coming up on the end of the show. Before I get to the sponsors, since we skipped them over, Virgo, do you have anything coming out? I know you have a new series you just started today, but I want to give you a chance to plug anything you'd like to plug that you're working on or that you have coming out.
Well, we do have a new series that we're working on right now, and that is the interview with an ex-sovereign citizen. The first one came out today, and it's very interesting. The gentleman that I'm working with, his name is Gavin, and he has a working knowledge of the inside of the pyramid scheme that that is being run by these groups that is the redemption theory scheme. And, you know, I've seen documentation of proof that these things are being pushed by these different fringe groups that basically there's diagrams. I mean, they tell you kind of what to go over first and how to string people along. And so it's a very interesting first video that's out. It kind of just goes, you know, brushes over all of it. And as time goes on, as each week goes by, we will do one per week until it's concluded. And, you know, there'll be more and more revealed.
And so I watched the first episode this morning.
Series.
It was very good. Folks, I definitely recommend checking out Virgo's channel. There will be a link in the description. You can also just look up on YouTube Virgo Triad. She does a lot of really quality videos, and it's a lot of good information. And like I said, if you're hip enough to all this to know better, give it a watch anyway. You might find out something you can use to help somebody else who falls for it. And if nothing else, it's usually good for a laugh that people actually take this stuff seriously.
Yeah, share it around.
You know, share it around, keep people informed. And as as one of the watchwords of my series from the beginning, you know, look things up, do your own research. Virgo's very good about giving sources. Check sources and think for yourself. And you're less likely.
Well, thank you guys so much for everything, too. I really appreciate you allowing me to come on the show.
Virgo, you've been a wonderful guest. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You ever want to come back? If you have any, our fields don't really intersect, but if there's anything you ever think you could use our help on, just give me a shout out. You got my email.
Well, if you ever have problems with a ghost or demon.
Yeah, do that too.
Kevin,
I sure will, guys. Thank you
you have
so
a problem
much.
with vampires, I'm the guy to call.
Yep, and Ryan's a vampire expert. I'm going to get into our sponsors at this point. So Virgo, I'm going to say have a wonderful night. God bless the work you're doing, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, guys. Talk to you later.
Yep. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Okay, folks, so that was Virgo Triad. As again, great YouTuber. I highly recommend her channel. I do want to remind you, since we're coming up on the end and I did goof up, one, free audiobooks out there. You can go to audibletrial.com/paranormale, audibletrial.com/paranormale. You can find all of Brian's books on vampires, Ancient Blood, Ancient Enemies, and Drawing Dead. You can find a lot of other great books. Another book you might look into is a really interesting book called Occult America. I don't know for certain if it's on there, but it talks about a lot of the occult influences on the U.S., and in particular, it talks about the Moore Science Temple,
nice.
which we were talking about earlier today. Also, we've talked tonight about hackers and about internet security, which gives us an excellent segue into our newer sponsor, which is NordVPN. NordVPN is a virtual private network. Basically, it's something you connect to after you get on the internet, then you connect to one of their servers.
Yeah.
And it gives you a double encryption. The encryption's military grade. They have thousands of servers all over the world. It's very affordable. There'll be a link in the description if you want to sign up and check it out. You get a 30-day month, full month, 1 month, 30 days, money back guarantee. If you're somewhere like China where certain websites are blocked, even on your personal computer, you can also use NordVPN to get around those. Unlike other some of their other virtual private networks, the problem you have is they save the information onto their networks, and the U.S. government could still subpoena that to come after you, or some other group could. But with Nord, it's based in Panama, which is not under U.S. jurisdiction, and two, they, according to their websites, they delete all those files, so you have that extra degree of security. That's going to do it for us tonight. This is Kevin Mears, demonologist and paranormal investigator.
And Brian McKinley, paranormal author.
And remember to tune in here on Hamilton Radio for Age Out Angels, the great show that's on after us. But that's going to do it for this week. Next week we'll be back. I think unless we have another surprise guest, we'll be talking about Deals with the Devil.
Deals with the Devil, yes.
The contract should be signed by then. I want to say good night, everybody, and God bless.
Live long and prosper.